Okay guys, let's go through some examples of how to multiply and divide or use a complex conjugate with imaginary numbers. So if I look at the example that I have here for multiplying, I have -2 minus I. Now remember, I assume there's a 1 there. And then I have 4 plus I, so I assume there's another 1 there. Now to be able to multiply those together, we just set up the box method. So -2 minus 1i. Set up my box, so 2 columns for that. And then 4 plus 1i, oops, on this side. Remember, I do like those boxes on the bottom to be a little larger. So now I'm going to go through and multiply. So 4 times -2 is -8. 4 times -1i is -4i. If I go to the second row, positive 1i times -2 is -2i. Positive 1i times -1i is -1i squared. Now remember, we talked about our pattern that if this is -1, by the time I put a -1 in here for the 1 squared, it's going to end up being positive 1, so I'm going to use this. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is put those two pieces together. So -8 plus 1 is -7. Then I'm going to put these two together. So -2i and -4i together is going to be -6i. And that's going to be my final answer. Okay, now when I go to look at complex conjugates, so I'm either going to here solve by finding the complex conjugate and simplify, or they're going to talk about dividing, one or the other. Now the first thing that we have to do in this problem is actually define the complex conjugate. So I have to focus on this down here. So if that down there is 6 plus 8i, then the complex conjugate is 6 minus 8i. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do the top. So basically I have two problems that I need to go through and be able to multiply. So if I go through, let's multiply these two first using the box method. So 3 and -5i. And 6 minus 8i. So if I start to multiply, 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times -5i is -30i. -8i and 3 is -24i. And -8i and -5i is positive 40i squared. So when we use that pattern of what happens once I put that -1 in there, positive 40 is going to become -40. So I'm going to put these two pieces together. So I basically have 18 plus a -40 is going to be -22. Then if I put these two together, -24i and -30i is -54i. So that part's going to be the top of my fraction. Now I'm going to take these two and multiply them together. So I have 6, plus 8i is going to go across the top of my box. And then 6 minus 8i down the other side. And now I'm going to start to multiply. So 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times positive 8i is positive 48i. Negative 8i times 6 is negative 48i. Now the good news is these two are going to cancel. In our last box, negative 8i and positive 8i is negative 64i squared. So when I go to do the opposite, that means that negative 64 is going to become positive 64. So when I go to put these together, I'm going to put those two pieces together. So if I have 36 plus 64, that's going to end up being 100. That's going to go on the bottom of this. Okay, so you end up with negative 22 minus 54i over 100. Okay, keep working on your other ones and look over your foldables.